Welcome back to Free Game, everybody. It's been a minute. Had a lot going on in the world. And it's time to get back to it. We're gonna go back to a monthly format for 2021. This is us, kicking back, getting back to that monthly format. We got a very special guest with us here tonight. And I'll throw to James so he can, make an intro, and we'll get to our panelists, and then we'll get the ball rolling.
It's rarely that I meet corporate folks. It's probably about a handful of folks who work in corporate that you can have real conversation with. You can have real conversations with. Now, I'm not going to say a handful. There's more than a handful, because that would be an indictment. But at a high level, right? When you start talking about people who sit on a board of major corporations, who actually are still connected to our culture and understand what's important to us, and most importantly, understand when they don't understand and want to reconnect to new and keep pushing the boundaries. For me, meeting Eric years back in Paris was a very refreshing conversation when he was the CMO. When he was the CMO at Adidas, it was he pulled up on me. This wasn't a conversation that I usually am the aggressor, and I want to get in rooms and have conversations. Eric went through his team and wanted to get close to the streets and get close to the information, and he reached out, and we had an amazing conversation. Since then, Eric has moved on from Adidas, and he's doing a ton of things, which we'll talk about today. But Eric is responsible for a lot of the things at Adidas we love. Mr. West, Mr. Williams, those are things that he had his hands all over. He'll never take credit for it. He'll say it was team, but Eric has been a visionary in our space for decades, and will continue to be. He's somebody that I respect as a friend and a mentor. And if you start to ask me about people that I get to have conversations with that push me to just continue to do what we do, Eric is one of them. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Liedtke.
Thanks very much, James. It's a pleasure being here, guys. When James asked me to do this, I wasn't quite sure what he was asking me to do, and I'm pretty much still not so sure what we're going to do. But I'm game for talking about anything that comes up, and I'm flattered and honored by the words James just used to introduce me, and I reciprocate all of them and more. Again, it's funny to say a couple Pittsburgh kids met up in Paris, but that's the life we live with the fashion weeks and such. But it was good to get real for a minute. And I would just to say the same thing with James. It's like, there's a lot of guys building streetwear. There's a lot of different accounts that are circling the streetwear category. There's very few that are doing it with purpose and authenticity to a community that they serve. And the first thing I heard about James from my guys was he doesn't like going to the big cities right away. He likes to keep it real from where he's from and from communities that he can have a bigger impact in. And I think that immediately struck a chord with me compared to all the other ones that I know, whether they be from London or Paris or New York or LA. It's like social status, I'm in the air. Those guys are doing it in a different way. And I would suggest a much, much better way, which is why even after I left Adi, James and I made sure I kept James close, especially in the events of 2020. And when I need to get some real talk and understand what was really happening in America and the world, I was still living in Germany. I called James just to say, break it down for me. What can I do? What do we need to be thinking about to change the way the current trajectory of the world we're on? And whether it be political or social or economic, it's just all needs a lot of deep discussion and thoughts and actions. So thanks for having me.
No, man, thank you for making the time. I mean, obviously for you, I knew when I asked it was a loaded question. It speaks to who you are. So I appreciate you always making yourself available for me.
No problem.
Everybody else on the board, I think we got another special guest, somebody who I consider a brother. I think he's one of the best creators that exists right now. Most people know him from what he done at Jordan Brand. We know him just as the homie, Frank Cook.
What's going on, everybody? Good to see everybody. You know what I mean? Hope everybody's being safe. Yeah, man, I'm thrilled to be on this platform, man. I think it's a good thing. Just to learn more of the ins and outs of what goes on and what we really, kind of go through. And again, like to piggyback off of Eric, man, this year has been kind of crazy for everybody, but I think it's been a lot of personal growth. I think it's been a lot of good, we've seen a lot of good changes in retail, and all these great ideas are flowing, and I think it's going to get nothing but better in 21 for sure.
And the rest of the team, Ari, Dre, Hutch, now Chantel officially on the team. Chantel, who else we got on the team? Did Sharifa jump on yet? Hutch on? And I see my main man Joe from Oneness down there in the corner. What up with you, Joe?
Okay.
But let's get the conversation going. We were a little in conversation, Eric, and I think Dave, where you want us to start? Because I could just start going all over the place.
We talking about the concept of justice tonight, man. So I think just that I'll let you set up some framework, James. Was kind of what you were thinking as far as the topic. Like obviously, Eric alluded to it, Frank alluded to it. It's been a rough year, and it's been a rough year in some respects. It's been a great year in other respects. But when we talk about this concept of justice, I think a lot of times when you watch, if you've seen any of these kind of like protest videos or anything that's going up, or interactions between protesters and police, a lot of the questions that you'll hear from people is like, well, what do you want? People will say justice, and they'll say, well, what does that mean to you? And I don't think a lot of people have taken the time to kind of uncover that concept. So I think I start by throwing to all of the panelists and just asking, like, what is your concept or your thought when you hear the word justice? What's the thing you immediately think about?
And hold on, Dave. Before we dive into justice, let me do it. Let me let Eric and Frank get the mic a little bit, so people can get it, so they can get a little bit of background. I think I gave Eric an Oscar introduction that he deserves. But Eric, you want to share a little bit of your background going in and why you're so passionate about justice, so people understand, not just obviously working with some of the people who you've thought about connecting with and bringing into Adidas for while you were there, and even going into some of the sustainability things that you were able to execute at Adidas. You want to give everybody a little context so they understand, and then we could pick up from there and move into our idea around justice, so they understand why Eric is so passionate about it, because when you hear it from him, you understand it a little more.
Yeah, I think just to give you from a little context, is everything I do comes from the consumer that we try and serve. So I fancy myself a student of consumer behavior and what's going on with the kids today and what's on their mind. And so I'm a 54-year-old white guy, so I've come from a very privileged background just by nature of what I am and who I am. But I consider myself very lucky, but it doesn't mean I don't try to put myself in the shoes of the people we're trying to talk to and consume and sell product to. So when I was at Adi, I kind of looked at Adi as a very broad playing form and said, hey, what are the big things we're trying to do? Well, we want to be a sports brand because we want to be the best sports brand. So we talked about really, really, helping our athletes or helping our consumers in their game. But then we recognize that the culture of sport doesn't stop when you leave the court. It goes with you into the hallways, into the streets, into the music venues and things like that. And so we started to really unpack, what Kanye's potential was. I know that he started with Nike, but, we really started to give him the platform that he needed and deserved. And then we went into Pharrell, and we went into, Beyonce and some of the others out there to really, really fully express what the culture of sport could look like on the streets and the music venues. But one of the things that came up also was, I think that if we're trying to help our athletes, help our consumers in their game, in their life, we also need to look at the world's a very stressed out place today. And we talked about that in 2020. And if you talk about the world and whether it's more stressed out than when I was a kid or you guys were kids like on the streets, it's like, what is it really? Is it more stressed out? Is it less stressed out? It doesn't really matter about comparatively. It matters how much new noise they're getting to them on a regular basis. And because of this little beautiful invention that gives us so much, access to everything, it can be great and it can be really terrible. And because there's so much noise and the noise profile is coming 24/7 through your phone, you're starting to stress out about things you may not even know about that you should be stressed out about, and not to talk about your daily stresses. So what consumers we found were looking for were trusted brands, companies, people they could count on to kind of like entrust to help them make the world a better place, because they do care about fixing things. They just don't know how, because it's super confusing. So to me, that's kind of where we started, and it started in a sustainability place at Adidas. But as I now have time to reflect on my post Adi days and have almost a year in between me and the last time I walked in the doors there, I'm just really starting to look at how the intersection of social justice comes to climate justice, comes to economic justice and health justice, and all these different aspects. And to me, to answer your question, David, I mean, justice is about a level playing field. It's about having equal opportunity, and that also means making up for the uneven playing field that's been there for years and years, and even in some places centuries, that we need to compensate for. And so I don't think it's about always a level playing field. It's about maybe there's things we have to do a little bit differently to accelerate the change we want to see in the world, but we also have to have a longer view. So I'll stop there, but that gives you a little bit of color where I come from and where I think we need to be going.
No, thank you, Eric. I think it's important for people to understand, like it's something for you to, a lot of people talk about community and justice, and it's been a buzzword this year, but I think it's something that we were talking about well before now. And I think that's an important point that I wanted everybody to understand. Like for some people, it's a right now thing, and things will change next year, and there'll be another hot topic and they'll move on. But for the reason,
that's the problem, James. It's
yes.
we're sucked into this immediacy culture of whether how everything needs to be right now, and that's what end up perpetuating the situation we're in, because the current structures in place are not providing the justice that's required, whether it be climate justice, social justice, whatever it may be. And therefore, you've got to have a longer view to change those things. And so you got to start it from the bottom up. And talk about any number of topics you want to go down, but they all kind of show the same signs. If you have a immediacy in your playbook, you're not going to get to the end result you want, because the change doesn't happen that fast. You got to be committed to it over the long term, which is why I believe it comes from community building. It comes from people in a common cause with a common culture.
Well said. Very well said. Cooker, you want to jump in?
Yeah, for sure. Eric, that was well said. I guess my journey started a little bit different, kind of starting out in retail at Wish, and always, being really rooted in the community. I always wanted that foundation to be our mission, definitely, I would see a lot of kids and what they had going on, and whether it be music or fashion, and what are those chances that we have? I think, growing up in Philly, or, even going to an HBCU, I seen how, different it was in the playing field, like you were saying. But, for me, I feel like in justice, we have to work towards it and have different kind of talent come through these different corporate jobs. I think it falls a lot on, who's looking at talent, where they're getting talent from. And, it's a little bit more than technical, you know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot of I've seen so many good things out here. And I think, we have to start playing towards that.
Well said, Cooker. And I think that's a part about, I think for you, I don't think people realize your history in the business, right? I think most people just seen the run at Jordan Brand,
yeah,
and they thought like there it started, right? There was a lot of days of all of us together in Vegas, and a lot of dinners and a lot of conversations, which is our all common connection, right? That annual Vegas dinner where it started with me and Hutch at lunch, right? And it ended up being 60 of us at some point, having these conversations about the things that we wanted to make happen in the business as we seen it. Dave, if you want to jump back in and reintroduce that question now to everybody on the panel, and start getting some conversation floating.
Yeah, got you. So we just had Sharifa jump on with his pals on now. I'll give him a second to introduce themselves real quick.
Oh,
Go
hi, I'm
for it, Sharif.
Murdoch, co-owner of Liberty Fairs.
And then Brother Pell.
I'm Pell. I design shit, Foundation, Kappa, etc.
Uh-oh. Pale's having a bad day.
We're in comment hell right now.
I'm sorry, Pale's having a bad day.
Yo, I still think it's 5:30 right now. No, it's not a bad day. It's a great day. Shit, I'm working. I'm earning a wage. I'm alive during COVID. Shit, I'm here with y'all. I'm blessed.
Yeah.
And tomorrow's my motherfucking birthday. So Dre, Hutch,
Oh shit!
y'all may not see me tomorrow. So y'all better work the shit out of me.
Happy birthday, Pell.
39 tonight.
What you 60 ball now?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm 75, motherfucker. I drink water and I look 10 years younger than you thought.
Hey, look, Pell, we appreciate that energy, man. You got us going, man. We got us going now.
Nah, hey, listen.
The kickoff question for all my panelists. What's up?
Nah, I'm saying we here. This is the most important thing. We all here. So that's where the energy comes from.
Church.
That's right.
I actually missed y'all.
Well said, Pell.
No doubt.
All right.
No doubt.
Let's go, Dave.
All right. First kickoff question for all my panelists. What does justice mean to you? And if you in the audience too, feel free to drop your answer in the chat. But for all my, let's do a round robin real quick, and let's get that. What do you think justice is? How do you define justice?
Because when you piss poor and broke, right, and you starting off, for me, justice is inclusion. Justice is opportunity. Justice is space in the ability to work and having people feeling accepted, right? Like, yo, the idea of justice being just about like, yo, people not killing us. That's one part of it, right?
Yeah.
But if we had opportunities to have education, and we had opportunities to put ourselves like, yo, at 14, we shouldn't think about in our communities like if we're gonna make it to 18 and 20. And that's a common thought for most people in the Black community, right? So for me, justice for me is not having to think about like, damn, another funeral, another friend. It's like thinking about what else can we accomplish? What are our opportunities? I think that's for me.
For me, it's more about freedom, but also having a voice and being able to keep your voice no matter what you're doing. I think what tends to happen within an adult age, you start to have to code switch for people. And I think it's important for us to be free and for us to be who we are. That's what justice means to me.
Well said, Sharifa.
Thank you.
Justice to me is equality, fairness, and freedom, right? I know it's simple the way that I say it, but when you really think about it, I mean, you could throw balance in there as well. And if you just boil it down to that, and as even when I listen to some of the other terms and statements that some of my fellow panelists have made, if I boil it down to that, that's what it means to me, because I can make that applicable to basically life, right? And really, in some form or another, that's what we're all striving for, everybody.
Yes. Ari?
To me, it's just fair. I'll go the simplicity route like Dre. So oftentimes, like, right, what's fair for someone that looks like me versus what's fair for someone that looks like you isn't the same. So like, how can that be justice? So fairness, right? Us all equally treated the same fair. So if Dre's son's getting pulled over and has to put his hands on the dash, then it would only be fair that my son has to. But if my son doesn't have to, then it should be fair that Dre's son doesn't have to. So to me, fairness wraps up equality, wraps it all up in one word.
Pell, bruh?
For me, I mean, I think that everybody, for the most part, summed it up. But it's equal. It's equally good. It's the punishment and reward on an equal level playing field. So if something bad, if I do something wrong, and I get sentenced for it, like, I mean, I'm boiling it down to fucking with the police. Yo, same shit that happens to me should happen to Ari, should happen to a Spanish homie, Chinese homie, whatever. That's it.
Bruh?
Oh, my bad, James. Dave had me in the Rosa Parks seat all day. So, first thing I say, Pell, your language is atrocious tonight. I need you to dial it back a little bit.
Yo, Hutch, I'm like texting you. I'm on the Slack and I am changing these body colors. So I need you to check your text and answer the question.
So I'm not going to stray too far from that tree, right? I'll say it's about fairness and balance. That's the Libra in me. And I'll throw in accountability, right? People being accountable for their actions. Let's keep it simple.
What, Dave? You want to pivot because you know I'm about to get a big mouth.
Yeah, I was just about to say everybody's kind of touched on some things that I think are relevant to the conversation, but I think Eric's intro something really struck with me when he talked about kind of like even out the playing field for folks who may not have had a fair shot to strike out, and that to me that strikes a chord with the word equity. I think about people think equality and equity are the same thing, but equity is about restoring and making things a little bit more when there is less, being able to provide more so that everybody is on the same playing field, as opposed to if you're starting behind and I give you the same thing, there's still that gap that exists. Equity is about restoring that. So I'd like to get Eric to kind of talk about his mindset around and his experience around trying to provide that and kind of bridge some of those gaps from an equity perspective, to kind of round out. A lot of times we hear D and I, diversity and inclusion. I always think it should be DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I just tossing to Eric to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a year of reckoning, I think, for a lot of corporations with Black Lives Matter movement and things that are going on. I think I'll just say right now, I should have done more when I was at Adi. I could have done more, and I'm damn straight gonna do more going forward. And I think any corporate executive that doesn't come out and say those three statements right out of their mouth and look to do more. So I can't talk from a rich experience of leveling the playing field and providing better equity or even equality, Dave. I think those are things that I endeavor to fix in my next chapters. But right now, I would say what we were able to tap into, just to pivot a little bit to broaden the topic, just from a justice on a social standpoint, was I think what we're getting towards is a conversation about how you fix it, right? So, and I think what I would just suggest to the panel is like, we have to talk about being more purpose driven. And I think if you look at the world of streetwear, the world of consumer goods, I think one of the things we need to do is be less temporal in our demands and more midterm or long-term thinking, as I talked about with James earlier. And that means, starting to support companies, brands, people that are representing the purposes you want to see in the world today. So that may mean climate justice. It may mean social justice. It may mean, health justice. All the things we're seeing come to play in 2020, I think they all are kind of interrelated. And I think that those are things you have to look at. So as you build future companies and future teams and future advocates and wherever you want to point yourself, you have to start saying about what is the purpose that's going to drive you differently. So to me, I'm 100% with you on the social justice thing that we've always been talking about and how we provide better equity in the workplace and everything else. But it comes down to voting with your wallet, and it comes down to voting at the public sector as well, which we've seen in the recent presidential elections. But to me, purpose-driven brands are the only ones that will succeed in the future. It's that clear to me because of these conversations, because we're at that inflection point of going into a whole new area. And it's shocking to me how few companies are actually walking the talk of purpose, regardless of whether it's about, Black Lives Matter, it's about Me Too, or it's about climate change, whatever it may be. There's very few that are actually legitimately holding those purpose, goals as their North Star.
And it's interesting you say that, right? Because I think for us, obviously, right, being a company that's led by majority Black folks, it's easy for us to come in and lead with purpose because we got to have each other's back to win. So it's interesting. It's interesting for me to hear you say it, and now I'm gonna poke at you a little more, and we could talk about all that purpose, right? Because that purpose is not just racial justice, right? It's educational justice, it's environmental justice. Talk about some of those things too, because I think when we have those conversations, that's when you get really fired up.
Yeah, I think. Listen, I mean, the world is at an inflection point, right? So I think you can talk about climate change, right, and what's going on there, but you see it's very much related to to economic justice, and you see the different things, because the people that will be most affected by a changing climate will be the ones that are less fortunate in their income, and will be the ones that come from a different place. So to me, what we really need to talk about is how we start to change these things, and again, it goes back into what you build into it. So to me, if you believe with the thesis that purpose-driven brands, purpose-driven companies will be the only ones to succeed going forward, consumers are looking for that change. They want to vote for that change, but it's confusing world out there and they don't know who to vote for. So you have to be super clear in your storytelling. James, this is what you're doing at the Whitaker Group. I mean, you are absolutely putting yourself, leading with your chin. This is an example of it, walking the talk of what you want to do to build and give back to the community that you represent. And that's what I think those types of efforts need to be done. I don't think I'll be quite blunt, I don't think the incumbent brands and companies can make the change. I think it's going to have to come from startups and disruptors. I think the big ones are too big and too complicit in the current scenario, whether it be social justice, whether it be economic justice, whether it be climate justice. They're built on the make, take, and throw away culture that is what we find ourselves in with the different situations, whether it be pandemic, whether it be social justice, whether it be the climate change. So to me, it's like picking a path and really drilling down and looking at where that path takes you. And I'll throw it back to you. I don't have all the answers. I simply have a very clear, vision of purpose-driven companies need to lead the way. And you're a walking testament to that. And what I will build in my next chapter and two will be similar assets and similar experiences that go after those type of endeavors.
Well, I think the key part is for all. I think let the people who aren't on the panel understand that, right? Because you see a lot of comments firing up in the chat room, and people hearing you talk candidly about the change that needs to happen, and it needs to be purpose led. And what I'd be curious to hear some of those someone who's not on the panel's point of view about what's their thought about purpose driven companies and the need for it, and the consumer choosing with their dollar, right? Like I hear a lot of people saying, I had a conversation very recently. Somebody was saying, well, in the hood, it's tough to care about sustainability. You can't sustain yourself. So you can't really care about if a product's sustainable because you're trying to just keep a roof over your head, keep a meal on your plate, right? So there's that part, right? But then there's the other side of people who, to your point, what did you say? It was something and throw it away. How you define some of the big companies.
Make, take, and throw away. And guess what? All that throw away, whether it be factory discards or clean water issues or poor education, all happens to continue the poverty and the economic injustice that's happening in the inner cities, and even with the workforce that's making the product. So you have to kind of look at it holistically. And I get that we have to take care of our base needs first: safety, food, shelter. Those types of things are the most important. But ultimately, we got to start to vote with our wallets and our feet to make the change we want to see. And I'm just suggesting that all of us can play a role in that, no matter how little.
Someone named Isaac Abo is on they just put an interesting comment in the chat. Can we unmute him? His comment said that's capitalism. No, there's nothing wrong with it. I want to hear him go because I think that's interesting conversation, because I think the thing that we've been able to accomplish the Whitaker Group is we're a for-profit company. Let's not mistake in that. But purpose comes ahead of profit, because with purpose, we can drive a profit that goes back into purpose, if that makes sense. And we can make money and live an amazing life, but still move the world, if that makes sense. The two are the same. And I don't want that to be confused. So I would love to have that dialogue. Did you find him, Dave?
Yeah, he's unmuted.
What's up with you, Isaac?
What's up, man? How's everybody doing?
What's good with you, brother?
Yeah, yeah, no, I was just saying, you know, I mean, for me, that's capitalism. You know, it's what's the word I think escapes me? Like a meritocracy or whatever. Just like that's the privilege we have being in a country that allows us to say, like, hey, if your talents and your skills align up to those of the best, we're going to afford you an opportunity to, you know, make money at the highest, at whatever highest level possible. You don't always have to, you know, your social responsibility doesn't always have to come into play for your stakeholders, which is like your community and those people who are using your products, because, you know, they're giving you the benefit of a doubt that you as a corporation, an institution, like you have their best interests at heart. And then what we're providing you is just like, hey, like, all right, cool. Now,
but the thing I'll challenge is this: do you really believe that? Do you believe with all the black screens that went off after everything that happened? Like, come on, man, are you really? And this is me questioning: are we all buying those black screens? Dre, you look like you wanted to say something, so go ahead. I seen your face when I said it, so your face went. Go ahead, Dre.
No. I'm gonna let you finish. You finish first. And then...
I mean, I just listen. I'm calling bullshit, right? Like, listen. Like,
bingo.
To the point early. Like, come on, man. Like, you want to look like right now. I see more white guilt in 2020 than I've seen in my whole life. And I think that white
James
guilt
is even bigger than that, ain't it? Right? Because like we're talking about sustainability and we're talking about a specific community, right? And Isaac said something interesting too about talent, right? Like we reward talent at the highest level. There's plenty of dudes making tons of money that have this much talent. And there's tons of dudes with this much talent that we don't even know about.
Yes.
That some bigger dude in a bigger company is pulling their shit and knocking it off and getting the credibility. But to me, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about these big companies, and Eric said it about, you know, companies with purpose is the future. These same big companies whose products we inundate train these same communities that are impoverished for the need to buy, throw out, and get a new pair. So when we talk about the hood, or we talk about friends of ours that have doors in the hood, like we got friends that have guys that come in 3 times a week to buy a pair of 6-inch wheats.
Yep.
Throw the other pair out because it got a crease in it, get a new one. But the community, the corporations, the media is training us all to believe that like crispy is what it has to be. A scuff means your shit is garbage. So the same companies that are blacking out their screen, to your point, and the same companies that are like, I'm going to turn 15% of my executive suite into people of color and women, are the same companies that are marketing to the community to buy and discard, buy and discard, buy and discard. So it's more of like a holistic cycle. That's why you're 100% right. Of course it's bullshit. And what Eric said was correct. For those guys to unwind their machine, how do you unwind a $30 billion machine? And then your new North Star isn't your stockholder. It's now the communities that you kind of help impoverish and steal from. Like it's undoable.
Well,
right?
first of all, I mean, to that point, we have to all agree that there's a problem. If there's not a problem, then just keep running. And to Isaac's point, capitalism's work. If capitalism's working, hey, listen, I'm learning something new every day. I don't believe capitalism is working. I believe it's,
and you can be a conscious capitalist, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think. Listen, that's not. I'm not. Don't rail me as some communist now. I'm not. Capitalism.
I was going to say socialist.
Fine. But I've lived too long in Europe. But capitalism, it works amazingly well. But at a certain point, the guys with the money want to keep the money. And James and I were talking about this. He goes, yes. I what you said, James. I'll just, if you don't mind, spontaneously, just try to guess what it is to my memory. But basically, he said, I tell guys in executive C-suites like you, Black Lives Matter is not a black problem, it's a white problem because they have all the power. I think that's what you said to me, James. And I said, actually, James, I think it's a green problem. I think it's the guys, regardless of color, that want to keep the money and want to keep the control. So to me, if we feel there's equity, going back to equity and Dave's point earlier, if we feel there's equity and equality in the capitalist game, then we can continue to play that the way it is. But I would say that it's a little tilted towards people with the power. And all you have to do is watch the political situation and how desperate the Republican Party is trying to hold on, a bunch of old white guys trying to hold on to power because they see the tide is changing. And they'll do anything to disrupt that, from voters' rights and stuff, which is a whole nother justice thing we can talk about. But I think we have to have a real conversation about, is capitalism working and supporting the communities that it's serving, or is it keeping the status quo in place? And I'm not against capitalism, but I'm saying it needs to be counterbalanced with purpose-driven companies that can be successful through capitalism as well, which means, Isaac, no sacrifice to the quality of product, no sacrifice to the services and the experiences you expect, but doing it with some sort of purpose-driven mandate, whether it be about giving back to the community that James has talked about, whether it be about saving, reducing plastic waste in the ocean, whether it be about, providing more opportunity for gender equality, whatever the purpose is. But vote with your wallet and don't support those that don't do any of that, or they're because you're just continuing the status quo. But if you don't think the status quo is broken or needs fixing, then continue on. Buy those 6-inch Timbs 3 times a week.
No, and that's just it. I don't know. The thing I'll challenge you on this, Isaac, is, do you believe capitalism's broken?
No, I honestly, I don't believe capitalism is broken. I just believe that how it's utilized. So that's just me. It's just how it's utilized. It's just like, when you provide somebody with a toy or a tool and you don't provide them any instructions on how to properly use it, the functionality of that tool, of that toy, of that whatever can be misused. So
can I ask you a question?
There's never a chance.
Do you go ahead, go, because the next question, go ahead, Frank, because I was ooh.
No, I was just, go ahead. Now you can go ahead. I mean, I see you got it, you bite, but I'll get back to what I was going to say.
Okay, listen, what did my boy Bodie say in The Wire when he talked about the chessboard? Did you watch The Wire?
Are you quoting something from 15 years ago?
Yeah, the Wire.
Yeah.
Yes, because the thing that Bodie said was this.
You why they're a pawn.
The game is rigged. I'm gonna simplify it. The game is rigged because in the hood, if I put you on the football field and you tried to dribble the football, you would get hit by a 300-pound lineman, right? Mm. If I put you on the basketball court and gave you football rules, you would try to throw the ball in the hoop from the other hoop. Does that make sense? And you would look like a damn fool in the process. We can't say capitalism ain't broken when we ain't getting access to we don't have access to the rules to play the game. There ain't nobody to give us the rules to play the game. We ain't got access to get to education for the rules to play the game. We locked out of the system. We're locked out of the banking system. We locked out of just about every fucking system that was ever made in the US. The fucking Constitution didn't include us because we were slaves at the time. Fucking right, the system's broken.
And so this is just me playing devil's advocate. Like,
listen, and I'm loving it. This is not me. I'm not screaming
James,
at you.
I don't think that is broken. Sorry.
Yeah, like,
I don't think that is broken.
I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah. Brother,
like, I don't think that the system is broken. And to your point, the system was not built to include us. This is not the system for us. We're trying to include ourselves into a system, into a box that was never meant for us.
And not fully understanding. That's the thing that you said.
Like, capitalism is not broken, all right? The mechanism of capitalism, by definition of what it's supposed to do, but the byproduct of it towards Black people sucks. It's like driving a car and putting your mouth on the exhaust.
Let me chime in here real quick. So I've been listening to this. Capitalism as a system is not broken. It's the way that it operates is
flawed.
You're either going to use or you're going to be used. And if we look at it and we can apply it to America, but the system works in other regions of the world, in other countries. You have homogenous societies, like let's say in Asia, where most of the people are Asian, and there's still going to be people that get taken advantage of in that system, and they're all the same race. You know, the people that have the power take advantage of the people who don't have the power. The people who have the wealth have control of the people that don't have the wealth. So the way the system is set up, there's always going to be some imbalance to it. That's the system. But also in capitalism, hold up, in capitalism though, there's still opportunities for people who start at the bottom to come and jump up and leapfrog, you know, and you have some people, some of us have done that.
No,
so
but
it is an imperfect system.
But Dre, the American dream, and Pell and Isaac, the American dream and the American system was built on the model of capitalism. If you go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, yes, you had real chances at success. The numbers, the wealth, the disproportionate numbers of wealth for rich people now, wealth is held in about less than 1% or 1% of, it's not about the 80-20 no more. It's the 99 and 1. Those proportions are so off, you have to indict the system.
But you're talking about the highest part of it. There's still a chance to be able to change circumstance here. It's just that it is an unequal, unfair system. And there's people, there's places where there are tremendous head starts, but it doesn't mean somebody can't come from the bottom and come to the top. It happens all the time.
Listen, I'm standing here. We're standing here. Go ahead, Cooker, I'm sorry.
I was saying those tools aren't there though in those communities, man. It's tough, you know, going back to what Eric was saying, you know, and you look at these different execs and you look at these people that are in charge at these different brands and corporations, it's like, you're not living in those communities. You're not living the life. You're just researching it and trying to put whatever's hot. Okay, now we're talking about social injustice, or we're talking about, you know, whatever the hot topic of the day is, and then we want to play to it. And it's been longer than that. You're not on the ground when you don't know what a kid goes through unless you watch it on a movie or on a show. You know what I'm saying? So it's different. And I'm not saying you, Eric, I'm not saying you at all, but I'm saying
you're absolutely talking about me. You're describing me to a T, and I fully admit that. I mean, don't worry about it, man. It's like I've not walked in your shoes. I can only represent the person I am, and that's, you know, I'm very clear about that. But please.
But so my thing is like, we'll see a flash of it. We'll see, hey, oh, this is what we're doing. I remember June 1st, everybody was shook. My line was blowing up. What do we do? How do we speak to them? Riots, this, that, and the third. Here we are, December. I don't see shit.
Crickets.
I don't see shit.
The same folks making
when they turned that volume up, that volume was getting turned up. It was like, oh.
To your point, the same folks making commitments that was screaming purpose is now saying like, well, is it profit or purpose first? Right. And to Eric's earlier point, if it ain't about purpose, fuck your profit. That's how I'm moving.
That's I mean, and that's why I just circle back, because I threw this grenade in the room. I think capitalism is the system that we have, right? We're not going to change capitalism overnight, but we have the power to change and evolve capitalism towards the companies we want to see. And I'll go back to the example of like, would you rather have, and I'm sorry, a LeBron James shoe or a Virgil Abloh shoe? Would you, like, and there's just, right now, that's changed dramatically from the days of sport reigning the world to more, influencers and artists and creators ruling it. And streetwear is always going to be about that. So to me, all I'm saying is like, the next step should be about purpose. Why is Virgil Abloh's, plastic tags on any one of Nike's icons something that's more valuable than a purpose-driven product from Nike? Maybe it be Space Heavy, maybe it's something else. And I'm just saying, like, I think the next evolution we need to embrace is ones that give back to the causes we want, the purposes that we want to represent, whether it be social, climate, economic, or what have you.
Now, the other side to that is, in my view, somebody, I forget who said accountability. When you talk about accountability, I mean, we've seen that switch, with a bunch of $50 bills out there, then the floors drop, then it's like, oh, forget about it. We need to make this profit. So there's a lot of things that happen. And then we have to be like responsible enough to say, hey, we're standing against this. You can't wait until Saturday and just forget about shit because a Jordan dropped or some Pharrell dropped and everything is Okay. We have to have some type of responsibility too.
It goes back
let me chime in on that, because and this is why I'm gonna agree with Pell, because at the end of the day, capitalism is not broken. Capitalism is doing exactly what it was meant to do. And I challenge you to find me a perfect system in any country.
That's true.
At the end of the day, this is all going to depend on the angle that you're coming from. If it's about Black folk, we have to get off of, we're trying to keep saying, let's play football when they've been playing basketball. And at the end of the day, just pivoting off of what Pell said and bringing in what Frank said, the power, a lot of it still relies on us. We choose to spend our dollars where we want to spend them. We can decide if we want to spend them, to Frank's point, everybody's, and I was saying a lot of unpopular things, but everybody was Black power, and to them Jordan 1s drop.
Yeah.
So
it's like this.
Yeah.
You have the power and we have the power. We have a lot of people, to Dre's point, that's made it in what we might consider an unfair system. There are some people that have made it in that system. And then what are you doing to bring it back to us? Like, James, you're creating a mini economy with just what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You have the opportunity to employ the people you want to employ, right? You have the opportunity to take your business where you want to take it. Same with us, same with other people. So to me, it's like, look, it's unfair. Yes, it is. What are we gonna do? Like, and to me, the asking other people to keep giving us shit, it's not working.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, go Sharifa. I heard that voice.
No, I just think that, like, we got to retrain, and I think that there's one James, you know what I mean? Or there's not so many of the James. The problem, I think, what happens is, as a people, when we get to a certain level, it's like we forgot where we started from. And that's the honest to God truth. I think everyone wants to keep up with the Joneses, so they keep going to buy the Jordans. When everybody was shouting Black Power, come Monday, everybody was sitting up in the store, and it was more Black people than whites. Do you understand what I'm saying? It all do fall on us, you know? But our leadership, I think what happens is everyone is censored on Instagram and all these things, all these technologies that they keep feeding us all day. Young people are censored off of that. And young people follow exactly what they see. They see so-and-so wearing the sneakers, and this has been going on for years. But what we need is more people that have now made it up here, and it needs to be more than one James or more than one Dre or more than one Sharifa. It has to be everyone in unison. Otherwise, it will never happen, and we're going to continue having these different conversations.
No, I agree with you completely, and I think we're seeing a lot of that light up on the comment board. We have to be responsible for us, and we have to hold out that word accountability that Frank used and someone else used early to describe what justice is. I think we have to be bold enough to hold these companies accountable, and how we hold them accountable is with our dollars, right? Like we make the choices to spend the dollars that we spend, and we can consciously, like, in June, everybody was calling everybody out as culture vultures, right? In June, everybody was a culture vulture. In stimulus money hit, that went away. That money, them vultures was eating again off that same culture, right? And so where's the discipline, right? And that's the thing, to Sharifa's point. We gotta it's not about just us only supporting.
James, you just
go ahead, Ari. Ari went in and out.
Ari went into his vault.
Yeah.
You got that janky internet.
Yeah. So the point I was making is it's not just about black and white, because I think there are white people that could do right by our system. I think our system can be done right by everybody, but we all got a choice to make, and we all got to hold each other accountable to it.
So I mean, I think that makes a valid point in a couple of different ways, and it might be a good opportunity for everybody in the room to be able to workshop. So to kind of center the conversation as we get a little bit more solution driven, and everyone's talking about like voting with your wallet. I charge the entire, everybody who's on the call with the question of what are different things you can do economically. Like, what does voting with your wallet look like, I guess, is the best way to frame the question. So, I mean, if you got some ideas about that, throw it in the chat, and then I'll let the panelists go at it as well on, voting with your wallet. What does that look like?
I mean, for me, a long time ago, is as much as I'm in love and I'm a fan of our culture. I'm a fan of creation for that reason, and I got to give a shout out. This is where I always pay my homage to my good brother Hutch, because when I remember when we lost our homie Japel, R.I.P. Japel, under the circumstances that we lost him in, that struck me because we all street dudes, right? We all street dudes that left the streets trying to do something different. And for me, this business was about having the opportunity to create and built something that's meaningful to the whole conversation of capitalism, right? So for me, it was just really about being able to do that in a meaningful way. So for me, it's about being intentional about supporting people who's building something meaningful for the right reasons. Don't just buy hype. Don't follow the fuckery. Like, look in and follow authentic path. Don't just chase hype.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
No, I agree with James. For me, I guess something I always dealt with and when I was in corporate was like I was contributing to the hype, right? So making the hype, week after week, or, month after month. But it was also a lot of things working behind the scenes on getting it to the right places. You feel what I'm saying? Like the right storytelling, or somebody that came from an HBCU, which is like the hottest thing now. So if it's HBCU anything right now, brands are on it. But it's like, how do you have those type of employees that are really telling our story? I was really a voice for everybody, for the community, so and that resonates and speaks volumes. But there's a lot of things too, and James, this, that were just out of bounds. But those things now seem appealing. You know what I mean? Like they deemed it out of bounds, or it's too much of a force.
Yeah, but the question is, for how long, right? Like, I can give you an example of like me starting in Vision Fest, and none of the brands wanted to support it. None of it. Because it wasn't cool, or it wasn't some drops or some nonsense. Like, I literally am trying to uplift and educate women, and no brand wanted to jump on it. So it's like, how do you, they're going to do it for now. Just like James said, in June, everything was Black Power, but we're in December now and everything is kind of flat. No one's talking about it. No one's doing anything. Everyone that made these promises aren't doing it. So where do we keep going with this is the question.
Yeah, and to your point, how for me, community is a new hype, right? Because we're all going to continue to create product. Because listen, excitement and energy is what moves the world. It has to be, the energy and the fire and dope product has to be a part of this, right?
Realistically, yeah.
Realistically, right? But to Sharifa's point, like, it's same, right? Like, yo, listen, say it, take it how you want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. I always been a cool motherfucker. I ain't never needed nobody to validate who I was. I always been that motherfucking dude. I always knew that. So I never needed nobody in this industry to validate me.
Well, James, it was that one time you had on those weird pants, though. I just want to throw that
out there. But to that point, right? It's that part. To Sharifa's point, like, yo, when you see somebody stick their neck out, like Sharifa and doing Vision Fest, to help empower Black women, show the fuck up. Like if you got a position, speak up. And bigger than that, when you see somebody who's not doing what they supposed to do, call them out. Like yo, we can't be scared to use our voice.
But like she was saying, but James, like she was saying, when you have that voice and you're trying to explain to somebody what your vision is and they have to approve it, how can you, I know she knew what she was talking about 1000%. She had the plan, she thought it out, but ultimately if you have to get it, approved, or How do you do that?
Oh, you speak up. Listen, I've owned companies and I've worked for companies,
Right.
and never someone tell me I'm not going to allow to at least say something and really fight for it. Like, my whole point is, what happens, we get into positions and we're scared to talk. You can't be scared to talk. They put you in a position for a reason. And because of those reasons, that's how they use you. And that's how the cycle continues. You have to speak up. Like, it's just unacceptable. And as of now, especially, it's unacceptable. It should have been like this before, but everybody was scared. They scared they're going to lose their job. You know how many young people I talk to on a daily basis? They'd be like, I ain't saying nothing because I'm scared I'm going to lose their job. And I tell them, speak the fuck up. You're not going to lose your job.
Preach.
It's
hey, Jay, if I was there, probably, if this happened 2 years ago, probably. I'm just.
and let me chime in and just say, look, I'm just off that playbook personally, like, to ask people to give you something shit. Like, I think we've been doing that
way too long
for 400 years, and it's not working.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, I'm a realist. Everybody can't be saved, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It's casualties of war, and this is why I keep saying all of your allies don't look like you.
Yes,
exactly.
It's not about black and white. We got a couple people in here that's not black. We got women. Look, it's like-minded people. Yeah. Whatever you're trying to do, surround yourself with like-minded people and go about your path. But this waiting on people to give you something, good luck with that.
Exactly.
It's not working.
No, well,
I want to say something.
Go ahead, Ari. He's back.
I was just, I had to go pick up my kid, so I had to switch over to my phone and didn't want you guys hear me getting in and out of my car or whatnot. But Hutch's point is a super valid one to me, because, right, being a person of color, when you get up into corporate America and being, maybe the only one in that room and having the gumpture or the guts or taking the risk to say what you feel and risk what the outcomes might be. Obviously, in today's America, they're not going to fire you right away, but, in corporate America, a motherfucker don't like you, they're going to figure out how to get you out, right? It's also, people that aren't of color and men that are in positions of power, that we're in places that need women. It's on all the people that are just have a fucking conscience that, maybe didn't come from an impoverished background, maybe don't get it, to Eric's point, but just definitely know that equity and equality don't exist, and they got to speak up and they got to rattle the cages. To me, that furthers Hutch's point of everyone don't got to look like you, but we all need allies to collaborate with, to get done what we all want to get done. So it's got to be like a group effort, especially when you get in the corporate ranks.
Well, and that's the point I was making to Eric when I made the comment about this is a white men problem. And the reason I say that is because the systems are controlled primarily by white men, right?
1,000%. And when you get a woman in those arenas, my sister is like a high-level executive in a very male-dominated industry, and she is the only woman in her world, and she's on the diversity panels, and like the stuff that she shares with me that comes out of these guys' mouths is, I don't want to say abhorrent, it's just wildly ignorant. They just don't know any better, I guess.
I don't think they don't. It's not Ari. I'm gonna challenge that and say I don't think that they don't know. I think they don't.
Or they consciously. It's conscious ignorance. Put it that way, because at this point you can't not know. You're right.
Exactly.
You're right. Yeah. It's that willful ignorance.
Yeah.
And part of me looks at like our generation and the generation below us is like kind of the most advanced since basically our parents, right? So the 60s and equality and anti-war and peace and togetherness was like a product of our parents. And then what happened was they moved to the suburbs, they got into politics, they became the very executives they couldn't stand, and they forgot where they came from and forgot what they were fighting for, right? Yep. And they became the same politicians that they were protesting against, and they became the same CEOs that they couldn't stand. And what gives me a level of hope or a level of confidence is we're all in our 40s. you know, most of the panelists at this point, some even older, and we're still we're still fighting the fight and talking about it and showing it inside the companies that we're a part of or that we own or that we run. And that is telling to me, that's comforting to me in a sense, because we're not losing sight. We're moving into the burbs or we're staying in the cities, but we're keeping that force top of mind and we're executing against it. And the guys even younger than us that were in the streets, you know, all spring, and that we're really leading the charge at the polls and whatnot. Man, these guys are just getting their first little baptism into what a fight looks like, and they're young and they're energetic, and then they got a generation like us to help them see it through. So I have a little level of excitement about what was created this year and how it woke up certain generations. My expectation was never that the big corporate bigwigs were going to stick with it and really get after it, because it's just not, it's not on the balance sheet.
Hey, I'd like to chime in real quick. You know, this era of COVID that we went through and the untimely, I mean, we watch a man die on TV and that shit has been normalized, right? We saw Eric Gardner die by getting choked. And that got normalized. When I was growing up, we would have never seen nothing like that on TV. They wouldn't allow it, they would describe it, but they wouldn't let you see it. But that's normalized now because it's sensationalized, in my opinion, for the ratings. Because the gram, YouTube, everybody got a camera, everybody's a reporter. So the news got to try to play up quick. They got to try to get those ratings, right? I think that this was a perfect storm of what happened. Everybody was locked in the house. This man passed away, unfortunately, and the youth hit the street like a motherfucking tsunami and fuck shit up where you ain't think they was gonna fuck shit up at. Motherfuckers was going into neighborhoods that they never walked through before and fucking shit up. I wish I was downtown getting a Rolex or two. For real.
No, but that
wait, hold on up, because I want to get to my point. Then we saw all these black squares popping up and having these weird ass conversations about what do I do and whatever. But that was shame. That was shame. You felt like, yo, if I didn't put this up, you was gonna be shamed and ostracized, and you didn't know what that shame and you didn't know what that was gonna look like. We talked about boycotting Gucci and all of this stuff, but imagine if your homeboy next to you was to say to you, yo, you wearing that shit? The same way that they would talk to you about wearing some Skips.
Yes.
If somebody said to you, yo, my nigga, you wearing straight like that. Yo, my nigga, you wearing Gucci? Like, imagine if we had a public burning like Fahrenheit 451 with Gucci in the middle of the fucking street. Or when they took disco records and went to that stadium and was crashing all the disco records and saying disco was dead. Y'all probably don't remember that. Look at the Bee Gees documentary. I just watched it. Shit's crazy. Anyway, we don't have no shaming. If we was, because somebody was writing in the chat, oh, we need our own brands and whoop, whoop, whoop. We already got that. Yeah. We got that from Joe Fresh Goods to Telfar.
Yeah.
If you want footwear, you could get black footwear. If you want to buy all black all the way to ass paper, you can get that. So all of that brand stuff, and we need economic this, that, and the third. Nah, you need to call motherfuckers out for what they doing right next to you. Like, my dude, I'm going to educate you. If I'm not going to educate you, I'm going to tell you like, yo, you wearing that bullshit. Straight up, because that's the only way motherfuckers is going to change. Is you got to call them out where they stand. My 2 cents, and I'm turning back to the other screen to make some more color changes.
First, Pell, your language is atrocious tonight.
What part of it? Is it the cursing?
No, listen, Pell, I appreciate the passion. I don't think I've seen this Pell since 2008, man. Welcome back.
It's them comments he working on, James.
Yeah, it's the frustration boiling over onto the call.
I would just echo that Pell is on the right path, and just listening to the conversation. I think you guys are saying, I mean, the movement starts with us, and the movement starts, basically streetwear has always guided the trend that influences everything. I mean, James, you and I were talking about, not only did you host Kamala on a campaign stop, But, Ronnie's up there doing 16 million in cars in 30 minutes. Supreme's selling for 4 times their revenue streams. I mean, it's just the numbers in streetwear, the things that can really impact the greater sphere and ripple out and influence multiple industries is right here on this call. I mean, streetwear has always been at the tip of the spear. It's always been the thing that it is the rock stars of today, and it is the most influential industry, I would say, in any. I mean, look at Virgil. He's been a rocket ship. He went from Off-White, did some Nike stuff. Now he's doing IKEA. He's at LVMH. I mean, the guy can't be stopped. I mean, but he represents streetwear. So streetwear is taking over the world in its own way. So if you want to create the change you want to see, which is what I hear from everybody, and the only question is how, it's kind of right there in front of you. And Pella just said it. If you want to make the choice, you call people out, you vote with your wallet, you support the brands and the companies that support your community. I mean, I'm so clear now that I'm out from the fog of big comp.
And I'll echo again, man. I think at this point, we have to change the way, and I hear all friends and people I love talking about capitalism, right? If capitalism isn't broken, there needs to be an additive, right? Because right now, corporate America influences legislation in Washington, right? And all legislation cares about at this point is corporate America. So we gotta, Frank, give me our verse, Frank. We gotta take over corporate America and make them respect our mind. And the only way we gonna make them respect our mind is through how we move this money, right?
I mean, it's probably in this chat room. It's probably 20 Virgils in here if they had the platform, if they had the tools. You know what I mean? You can if you make a Jordan 1, or if I had the keys to Louis Vuitton.
Listen. What Hope say? They respecting our mind now. It's just a matter of time now.
Yo.
I'm sorry, y'all. I just want to chime in because somebody put a comment on there, and I don't know what Dave's thing is, but it's the last one. And I just think that's an interesting statement that somebody made, and I think that is something worth talking about.
I was going to say the same thing.
Wait.
I got my wine.
Wait. Dre. Wait, hold on. But before y'all get to that, I just want to say one note to what James was saying and Frank, the back and forth. I thought they were gonna really do a whole verse, and they let me short. But
look, no.
Hear me out.
But no. Make sure y'all listen to that. When you get off, go on YouTube and listen to Jay-Z freestyle Corporate Takeover. It's in there.
But check this out. In short, what I'm hearing is we have the ability to be our own lobbyist.
100%.
In a group and individually.
First, we take over offices.
Yeah, you are your own
all of it.
If you're able to get 10 of your friends to move in one direction, you are a lobbyist. If you tell your friends, let's go to this club, you just lobbied for a group of people to do something. That's the power right there. And just that alone.
Right.
All right. Man.
Now let's get to that question on the bottom because I want to get that too.
Just to get into
the chat. I would love to hear them say.
Whoa! We know who that is. That's Big Homie. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That's Big Homie. Unmute Big Homie. Let's get it, Big Homie.
Peace, comrades.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Peace. All is well, comrade.
All right.
Yeah, that's something Eric references him a lot, and from my standpoint, he was cool first coming out with Pyrex and everything, but now he's gotten to a point where, what is he doing for us? How is he giving back to the culture?
Well, this is what I would say, right? And this is one of those things that's worth us having a talk, right? To say that he still is one of us. If you look at what his contribution is, there are numerous people of color who have got put on because of this man, right?
Okay.
He is constantly going out and picking people up, finding somebody that's obscure and putting them on. And then people get a platform, they go on like a cold wall, Salah Minberry. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's so many cats that's been around this dude. And I'm not going to say that he may not make some mistakes out there. Like, you know, he got trashed for the thing when it was about donating the money.
$50 donation.
But obviously he was donating money, because what happens on social media is people are quick to cancel somebody real quick. All you see is that blip for that second. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's what I'm saying, Dre. Them fours came out 2 days later, and everybody was like,
listen, I gotta say, I have to stay out of this conversation because I gotta remain biased, right? But I do have a point of view. But this is what I will say.
Mm-hmm.
Start letting the kids from the projects speak to the projects. Fuck all this, like fuck all this. Stop talking that. Stop talking that. You ain't been through this. You ain't got no friends that's dead. You ain't going to no fucking funerals. You ain't been in no fucking. You ain't got no BOP number. You ain't have to get fucking no time taken away from your life. So them motherfuckers is vultures too to me. I had to get my fucking brothers to in 20 years. My cousin got re-up. Like, come on, man. That's the shit that irks me. No knock to what anybody's doing for black folks. But most of the black folks that supporting this shit come from where I come from. So when you start talking about that, don't front. Don't act like you in the project hallways talking about you been in the projects all day. You ain't. You sound stupid to me.
Well, obviously,
if you a gangster,
to that cat, obviously he hasn't been that. But what I'm saying is,
but check. So stop that shit and stop. If you're really about that shit, go in there and be about that shit. If you really trying to touch some kids, go and really touch some fucking kids. And this ain't about Virgil. This is about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think
James, we don't want grown men touching kids, but that's another story.
but James, being more solution.
That was too easy, Hutch. That was too easy.
Right. Being more solution based, having these opportunities and having these creative spaces in underserved communities, man. I never see it. It's always some labor or
20-second TV timeout. Whitaker projects, the projects I grew up in. At the section, at the center, yes, it's happening, but you got to be from a projects to know it needs to happen. Because if you ain't been in that struggle and you ain't fucking had your ribs touching because it's the 15th and checks is gone, it ain't no food in the fucking refrigerator, you don't know that feeling.
But right? From Southside though, isn't he?
Right?
Absolutely.
So when you talking about kids, this ribs is touching, and when you start talking about free lunch and what that shit mean, free lunch is because we can't fucking eat if we don't get free lunch. Free lunch means that if we don't go to school for breakfast, we don't eat breakfast. If we don't eat lunch, because at the crib, there might not be no food. I might have to go borrow canned goods from a homie because his mom might have some left over. Don't nobody know nothing about that shit. So miss me with it. That's what fucks with me when you talking about our culture. That's our fucking culture. That's where we at. When heads is dropping, everybody's talking about George Floyd. Ain't nobody talking about fucking Pookie killing two dudes in the hell.
Kids killing Southside kids.
Kids killing kids. Ain't nobody talking about somebody gonna go tool up because somebody took their people's life, or you get forced with a pistol in your hand because you can't leave your projects because you from your projects. Because you get forced into a gun because you can't leave your projects because you from your fucking projects. You don't know what that means. That's what this shit is about for me. So all that play Louis Vuitton shit, that's cool because it's influential and we want to get some money. All the Gucci shit, that's cool because it's influential and it's showing you somewhere. But when you start talking about what this shit's really about, that's what it's really about.
Without us having those opportunities as well. That's all I'm saying. The voice in that. If we're gonna have a space for us to be able to cop it, we should be able to make it.
Yes.
And have positions to make it and create it. That's my thing. It's cool to sell it to us, but it's not cool for us to make it. And we're not in that position to do it.
Yes, we are. I got to Hutch's point. We ain't asking no more. That shit's over. That shit was in the last. That shit's over. Past 2020, we ain't asking no more. And the other part is There are people that's doing it right.
Good.
Eric is sitting here. There are brands that are stepping up the right way, but Eric is right. It has to be about purpose first, right? And it's gonna be tough for very big brands to do shit the right way, but there are gonna be opportunities for us to stand up. But when it's time, stand up. Back to Sharifa's point. When she come up with the new version of Envision Fest, or it's time for Envision Fest to do whatever, we gotta all stand up.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I was on one.
Yo, I think that there's a bridge between what Eric was saying, and yo, Eric, I love you like cook food, yo. So I feel like there's a bridge between what James and Eric were saying, where you have to have transparency, but you also have to have communication that really is going to the core of the matter and being very transparent with that. That's where some of the transparency needs to be and come from, because it just can't be about these like surface level conversations and thing that's publicized in the media, right? I think that we, first of all, and I mean Black people, right? We have something that we also got to take accountants for ourselves, the man in the mirror, for what we really doing. Got to question yourself, like, what are you really doing to be accountable to this problem that we see that's beholden to us? Not waiting for your man next to you to do something first, or some other thing is supposed to happen. Just what are you doing? Even if it's just for yourself, but what are you doing to push this needle forward?
That's the accountability piece part.
Yeah.
Accountability starts with us.
Get a second to ask a question.
Go, big homie.
I put in the chat early, but now that I have the floor, let me. And Eric, I want to ask you, when Nike did the whole Colin Kaepernick campaign, what was the talk at Adidas, or what like? I don't recall seeing anything from Adidas, but I just want to know, you were there at that time, because that was years ago. So what was the talk at Adidas about the whole campaign they were back in with the social justice and bringing light to his awareness of the issues he was bringing to the forefront?
Listen, I've got nothing but respect, and you know, I look to Colin Kaepernick as a personal role model in those regards and what he's done. And I think Nike did a fantastic way of bringing that to light and storytelling it. I think Nike's always been a marketing machine that is able to tell a very strong story against you know, what they want the world to see about them. I think going back to the point raised earlier by Pell and some others, it's like, are they walking the talk, or are they putting meat behind it? And I'll turn that over to Frank to talk more about that. As far as Adidas's point of view on that age, I mean, we were caught flat-footed, and we saw it as a missed opportunity. You know, I think it took a lot of courage from the CEO at Nike, Mark Parker at the time, to run that spot. And I believe, you know, the legend has it that it had to run through even Whiting Kennedy did it on the down low, and then put it in front of Phil Knight, and they ran it, you know, just as a thing that needed to be run at the time. Adidas doesn't have that kind of moral strength at the top, and let's just be honest about that. Adidas is a German-based company. It's Northern European. I'm not gonna. I try not to comment on my previous employer, but that comes with certain limitations in its courage and aggressiveness to address some of these points. You saw in the press probably where the chief HR officer, one of my colleagues on the board floor, was dismissed for calling Black Lives Matter an American problem, an American issue. So I don't think with that kind of context and that makeup in the senior executive wing, you're going to have the courage to go ahead and run a spot like that, or even have the entertainment to do that. So I was the only American on the board at that time, and you know, now there's no Americans left on the board. So it's just a different context, and they view the problem completely differently than what a Nike would, which has always been in touch a little bit more with the culture of the issues. So that's not maybe a black and white answer that you wanted. It just gives you a little bit of context on what actually the conversation is in the board floors.
And listen, let me address a couple things, right? So we get the Nike Adidas thing out the room, right? As it pertains to us. Like, listen, as a Black person, I've always been, and as a Black entrepreneur, I've always been completely transparent about the hurdles I've had to jump. And for 15 years, it's been a lot. And the hurdles is about quadruple the size of the hurdles that everybody else is jumping. right? But I think we're in a place where there are people who care. And I think, to Eric's point, I think the Achilles heel is going to be, can the idea of purpose and profit exist together, right? And to his earlier point, purpose starting on its own is a much better way to go if you're starting today. But when you start when you look at a behemoth like Nike and Adidas who lead our market, like, yo, that balance is going to be tough to juggle, especially when you start looking at the people who they serve. If they're not putting forward an innovative, purpose-driven business model, it's even tougher for them to change, right? So to somebody's point earlier today, when we stay, all of you on the call this is going to sound cliche as hell, are the future of our business, right? Because most people aren't looking in the mirror and leading with accountability and leading with purpose. And there needs to be more of that for people to plug into. We shouldn't be the only people in the room. Today we are. If this is done well and done right, by the time I walk away from this industry and go to the hills and chill, there should be a room full of James Whitners, right? And people who can have this conversation and lead things this way. If not, shit, I failed y'all.
Yeah, but don't you think, James, like what you're doing, what some of these other guys on the panel are doing, what some of the people in the audience are doing, what some of the previous panels you've on are doing, is pushing through and setting the stage? You know, don't you think in the Whitaker Group you're setting the stage to build people of color that are prepared for the boardroom, that have
listen, 100%. And I'm going to continue to push. I'm 42 years old. So what I got left, right? On my side. And right now, to Eric's point, there's an opportunity for my side of the business, right? There's an opportunity from our side of the business to put entrepreneurs forward, right? And what free game is, and all the idea of changing the Whitaker Group and being purpose first. Purpose, I'm not going to say purpose over profit, because without profit, we can't survive, right? And we can't drive purpose.
So, but just to clean that up, it shouldn't never be one over the other. The point is, purpose will drive the new profits tomorrow, because all of us give a shit and all of us are looking for a way to vote. We don't know how. It's confusing how to vote. It's like, what we need to do is galvanize that and make sure we get clarity from the companies we shop with. And it may take some, to Pell's point, ability to call out your friends for wearing the stuff that isn't purpose driven. But that's how change happens. And it happens at a very local level.
Philippe, I wanted to chime in based on that question that you had asked earlier. And when you were talking about Colin Kaepernick, and Eric was right. When you talk about the European companies, because we deal with them as well, right? And there is a cultural disconnect. Even though, you know, Adidas is a German company and obviously they have offices here, there's a cultural disconnect when it comes to social issues around race, particularly in America, the way that it is in America when you're in Europe. And I know any of the people that's on this panel that have been over there, like I dealt with them, we deal with European companies. There's always been a disconnect. And that's why that conversation came up when the guy said it was an American problem. There's an element of that in Europe that actually feels that way. And then even when you get into a country like Italy, they have the same kind of issues we have. It's just from a different angle. So their issue with race relations is more of a immigrant issue. It's different angles, and it's interesting because when you're over there and you start to see it and you start having conversations with people, and some of the people are truly ignorant to what's going on. Not ignorant so much to the fact, now obviously there'll be sometimes you'll be standing in somebody's face and you'll just want to yell at them at the top of your lungs. It's not that. Sometimes it's, they are not exposed to what is going on and they cannot relate. And it's sad, but that's the world. And that's how you end up in some of the issues with all this racial insensitivity when it comes to Gucci or this brand or that brand. You start to see it a lot with the Italian brands. It's like, and that goes back to inclusion. That's the thing about having people of color in your power structure, so that, you know, so that there is sensitivity to these issues, and understanding and relatability goes back to what James was talking about earlier, talking about, you know, being somebody from the hood and then being in that room and understanding what people go through there. That is one of the problems that you end up running into with these European companies. And, you know, and it didn't surprise me what happened with Adidas. It doesn't surprise me what happens with a lot of the brands that come out of Europe. And it is sad. And, you know, and they're on watch now. People are, you know, are calling them out for it.
Let me follow up and ask you then, you could probably answer this. James might be, because y'all rolling the high echelon circle. But this goes back to, I think, Sharif and Hutch's point about accountability. What about the athletes or I'm not sure we had them. Eric might have, I don't know, we had the rappers that that had the Adidas brands. What were they saying? Like, why weren't they speaking up to say, okay, this is something we need to bring light on? We getting a check. What, they didn't have any voice in the company to really speak out on it, or what was, you know, what's the element of that, or why that never took place? I just find it hard to fathom. Okay, I understand Eric's point that, you know, Nike was bold enough to do it, but as far as our accountability, our representation for those who are getting a check from them, why didn't anybody speak up, or why wasn't there any message that was we don't have the strength and the money that we bring to the table? We didn't have that leverage. What is it?
Billy Goats, man.
You just said it yourself like twice. They getting the check.
That Billy Goat, that 3.6 means
it's the reality, and that's where that word accountability comes into play, right? I think that, and I'm going to say it again, when we get to a certain level, some people forget what happened to them before, and they want to forget it. So when they're getting those checks, nobody's going to speak up. No one's saying anything, you know, and that's our problem. So instead of us always blaming someone else, we got to start looking within.
Yes.
You know,
say it again. Say that shit louder.
It's like you can't continue to just keep blaming other people for what our problems is. Because I'm telling you, I'm in Brooklyn. Everybody was marching up and down these roads. As soon as it started raining, they stopped marching. We don't have any we're not connected.
As soon as the stimulus checks came in, they start shopping.
They started shopping, you know, and they not even little shopping, they big shopping. There's lines for Prada, there's lines for Gucci, there's lines for all of these companies that they were so mad and in an uproar about 2 months ago.
How many retailers on this panel and how many people in wholesale? How did everyone's business go with no stimulus
everybody,
check?
yep.
It was like tax day. It was tax miss.
We got to start looking at ourselves. You know?
The accountability part is probably the most important of it, right? Because it's less about what Dre said about inclusion. Dre and Eric made the point about inclusion, right? And I think a lot of the points I make in the things that frustrate me, because Hutch said it earlier, capitalism in a lot of ways, and I'm not going to go far as say it's not broken, but what I will say is it still does provide opportunities because I exist, right? And I'm piss poor from the bottom, right? And when you get in those rooms, at times it's infuriating, right? Because you don't lose. I heard a Jay quote, and y'all probably learned today that I'm a Jay fan. You go in every room as yourself, not the self that they want you to be, but the self you've always been, right? I can't get rid of who I am. I can't remove my history or where I come and what I've seen. So yes, it wrapped inside of this project, dude, is a bunch of other things too, right? And that's what helps me get here. But at the root of it all, I'm a kid that came from the struggle, right? So it's tough. It's tough when you sit in a room and you hear what you hear. But to Sharifa's last point, the only thing that we can do is hold ourselves accountable against it, right? Because that's the only thing that's going to get anyone's attention. The earlier point I was making is corporate America affects the legislation, right? Through lobbying dollars. And then Pell starts saying we're all lobbyists, right? But if we start forcing corporate America to move different, they'll start forcing Washington to move different, then everything will be different, if that makes sense. To Dre's point, we'll get the inclusion that we're talking about in Europe. To Eric's point, he's the only American on Adidas's board. And we're talking about a company whose biggest geo is North America, right? Like, how crazy is that? That don't make sense. There has to be more inclusion, but the only way we're going to force it to happen is we got to keep doing the work ourselves, encouraging the people around us to do the work, and get lock in corporate takeover, and you'll catch what we're talking about.
Well, and also, if you think about it, and obviously this ain't about Nike, Adidas, but it was interesting, Philippe, because you could there's other companies, there's Under Armour, there's this one, there's that one, you know what I'm saying? And that's here, and they know what's going on here, you know what I'm saying? And they were mum, so it's, it really goes back to what Sharifa said earlier, what we're all saying. It's about the green. The green is the real color of all of this. That's what really drives the change. It's the money.
Capitalism.
That's the only thing, because corporations react when it starts to hurt their pocket. There's only but a handful that's going to make a move when it doesn't hurt their pocket.
We lived through
Capitalism always follow the green. Will always follow the green. That's why capitalism isn't bad or good. It's just a little bit needs course correcting right now. If you vote with your wallet, capitalism will follow. It's that simple, which is why I think changing things in the private sector through capitalism is almost easier than changing things through the public sector through elections and gerrymandering and all the stuff that's been thrown in our way from that standpoint. So it's like, lead with the private sector and the public sector will follow that with policy. So to me, it's like, you got to change, you got to vote with your wallet. It's that simple. I know it sounds easy, but that is what everyone listens to at the end of the day. It's about the top and bottom line.
I think we went for an hour and 40 minutes. So being respectful of everybody's time, I know I'm on one because I knew this topic was going to be one that pushed me anyway, but I guess I'm always on one. But let's Dave, you want to open it up to the floor to see what we got as we start rounding it out? Listen, Eric, I appreciate you being yourself, man. Like in these platforms, some people aren't as candid, right? And I appreciate you coming on, being exactly who you are and who you've been, and being completely candid about your beliefs and your thoughts, and just calling a spade a spade. We welcome you back as often as you got time for us, even if it's just about to add value. A lot of these youngins don't get a chance to understand what it's like to sit in the shoes or walk in the shoes of a board member of a publicly traded company. So, you have that experience, and you came out on the other side of it betting on your beliefs. And that's why I always ride with you, because when you were there was a set of things you believed in. And since you left, those things are consistent. So that's why me and you, I think it's the Pittsburgh in us. That's why we tied it to hip. So I appreciate you for that.
I appreciate you too, James. Thanks for the words. And I'll definitely come back and just to learn, because I've learned so much from listening to the community you have here. I love this platform. I love the dialogue, and I love the fact that love seeing you go off after a couple glasses of wine too. It's good for
Oh, that's right. I forgot you was drinking that wine.
Man, they know how to push my buttons too. Because listen, when you start talking about it, man, I say all the time, there's people at, like, when you start talking about Jordan and Nike, motherfuckers care. Like, they bleed that shit the same way we bleed that shit. And they get as upset at the bigger business as we all do. I think everybody does. Because the one thing a publicly traded company cannot do is love you back. You can love it. It had expectations of it. You can want all you want from it, but it ain't gonna love you back the way you love it, right? And I've come to learn that. And I understand from our position as the Whitaker Group, we got to go in and partner with people and companies where they are and help to bring them to our community so we can get the most out of the relationship to help our people, right? And as we start talking about the future of retail and the future of the world, leading with purpose and profit on the same accord, to your earlier point, right? One can't be above the other. But before it wasn't about purpose at all. It was only about profit. Now it has to be about, simultaneously, purpose has to be in the conversation with profit. And we got to be intentional about making sure it's always a part of the conversation.
And you got to also, going back to the support and also thinking things through, like, during this whole discussion, you got to give big ups to the Pumas and the New Balances of the world who, you know, giving people a platform. If it wasn't for like an Ari, a Dre, a Hutch, you, like, I would have never had a voice to say, hey, let me do this play clothes hat. And that's how things get to rolling, you know? So you have to applaud them. You know, these two big conglomerates, you know, you see them up there and it's huge, but are they really giving it to you until you blow up? You know what I'm saying? You gotta have the stage.
Cooker, you already know my biggest pain was, and I wrote I've been up since 4:30 this morning. And a lot of what I was up for is about like, yo, don't bet when we up.
Right.
Bet on me when I'm a risk, right? This is not a fucking banking system, right? You're like, yo, look into our community and really care. To Sharifa's earlier point, like, yo, in June, everybody was talking about all the commitments they want to do. So in December, when it's time to make them commitments back to our community, don't fucking buck now. Like, keep that same fucking bass in your voice that you had in June when shit was hitting the fan and you needed to leverage us and you needed our voice. Now, when it's time to do this work, do this work.
But the accountability of it all, we didn't realize. Go ahead. My fault, Ari. I was going to say, we didn't realize how much, like, you know, Pale said it was a tsunami. When I sat back and looked at them youngins turn that volume up, it was like, even the Black Dollar, even it was kind of like that week, everybody was like, yo, like it really affected everything. And those different, like Pale said, when they went into these different neighborhoods, I just want us to acknowledge how big that voice was. 6'1".
No, not was. It's our responsibility to keep the volume of that voice up, bro.
And that voice turned down November.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That voice turned down November 4th.
Yeah, that voice came, that voice pushed us through this election. That voice is, to Eric's point, purpose is the future for new companies. But that voice is the voice that's going to push the Jordan brands along. We like, yo, MJ gave up 100 million. That's 100 of them, right? Like that man gave up $100 fucking million.
Exactly.
Think about that.
That's the point. The election you just referred to, the change you've made with incumbents from within and from without, this is really there. It's possible because even Adidas anteed up 120 million, I think, over 6 years or something like that. There's real money flowing. There's real change happening because of what happened between 6/1 and 6/30. So I wouldn't be so quick to discount. I think you just got to keep your eye on the prize on that and how you need to maintain that consistent drumbeat. You don't have to
definitely not discounting it at all. Like, no, I'm just saying, like, I know the difference in them phone calls from 6/1 to 6/30 to the ones I'm getting today. And those phone calls was desperate, man. I'm looking at the phone, it's people damn near in tears. What do we do next?
But the catch is this, Eric, and I'll say it. Listen, my heart and hope, all I say always is like, yo, give us room to work. We started this conversation off with Dave asking us, what's our definition of justice? Give us room to work. Give us the opportunity and space to get it off. Let me go connect back to the 13-year-old me who didn't make it. Right? Like, yo.
I like that red blend. It's getting nice.
You like Hutch know who DC is. You know who DC is. Y'all know who T-Raw is. I done lost 25, 30, 40, 50 people to this struggle. So for me, when you start talking about this shit, it hit my stomach. Like literally get sick to my stomach. I lost real people that I love to this shit. So it's tough when you start talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like it just gets, it hits a little different. So when you start to leverage that and commercialize that,
can't go.
I can't fuck with it.
Can't go.
Because I'm from the bottom.
But James,
that'll never change.
A big platform to call these motherfuckers out, and like that goes back to the accountability piece, right? The same dudes in June that ain't there in December. You got a platform to put them on blast.
Listen,
to let the communities know, and that's part of the accountability piece.
The tough part for me is I can't call out my peers that way.
No.
If I'm the first one to say, yo, this person, I can't do that, right? Because if I do, it's hating. And that's another part of it, right? So I can't say Virgil do this, Ronnie do that, Supreme do that, right? I can't. Now I'll call Ronnie in a heartbeat, right? And listen, in respect to Ronnie pushing and trying, respect to Supreme pushing and trying, right? But at the end of the day, I still need all of those folks to try harder, right? Because at the end,
it was on fire. It was hot then, though, James. That's what I'm trying to say. Do it now. They got to do it now. Supreme got to do it now. Not a Mariah Carey Christmas tea. Do something now.
Yeah, no, bro, listen.
They got one of those? I want. How do you get one?
You missed the vibe. You missed the vibe at 11.
No, look. Now listen. I think what I will say is this. I appreciate this in the platform and everybody coming in to contribute their time, because at the end of it, yo, I can't get better. This is fuel. This is fuel for me, and it keeps me locked in and keeps me focused. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier, I ain't gonna never forget, but this makes me realize. And once again, big homie, I appreciate you, because when you start looking at, the hutches and the role that everybody played in us getting here, there's a level of accountability even for myself, and free game keeps me accountable. It keeps me coming back to my roots, and it reminds me what we doing this for, if that makes sense. So for that, I appreciate all y'all for coming out to always support us. And then I'll let good brother Dave take it from here. Eric, I appreciate you. All the rest of y'all fucking family. I love y'all to death.
Yo, Eric, you invited to the cookout.
Let me know where, pal.
Ari already there doing electric slide. He's good.
James house.
Ari got the electric slide better than the rest of us.
The cookout's over at James's house.
All right.
Man.
We'll shoot you the zip code later. It's got its own zip code.
Not yet, or not from your mouth. Listen, Ari, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yo, I want it
That's
for
like
you.
the Chicago Mercantile Building, right?
We know James' real last name.
Yo, and let me chime in and say this. And Jay, throughout whatever you've been through, you at where you at now. And to me, again, I'm gonna go back to it. We've been running the same play for 400 years. Yes. When are we gonna change the play?
Yes. Preach, bro.
Hey,
About to say, hold on, Pat. That mirror is telling, man. And I'm gonna say this because it was a lot of subjects I wanted to talk about that we kind of skipped through, the whole Virgil and all of this other stuff. We have to stop trying to hold people to levels of perfection. Like, everybody does not come up the same way you come up. Everybody does not have the same experiences you have. And at the end of the day, like, they're not having the same struggles that you may personally have. So we got to appreciate the things that come from that positively. No matter how cool, every Black person is not the same.
Yeah, facts.
Every Black person not the same. Everybody ain't cool. Everybody don't have the same. This is my Fresh Prince and Carlton example I would bring up. Because we all loved the Fresh Prince and thought Carlton was the corniest motherfucker in the world. But at the end of the day, some of them Carltons may be the reason the Fresh Prince gets in the door. That's enough sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes that's enough. And then what you do with it is what you do with it.
Let me ask you, I don't want to cut you off, just ask you a question. But if that's enough, then why is it Eric, who seemed like, a great person, he's not one of us, but he gets to know us. Or, he connected with James to understand, okay, this is the market that I'm trying to reach, or it's my consumer. But one of us that makes it to a level, you mean to tell me just because he made it and he's one of us, he shouldn't reach back to say, okay, what's the disconnect, or what's going on here?
Not what I'm saying. But what and I think the part that you might be missing that a lot of us on the call already know, there's a lot of people that guy put on. He ain't the coolest motherfucker in the world. And he damn sure when he cut his hair off, he looked like a turtle with no shell on. But at the end of the day, he's got a lot of guys that he put on. that you may not know. It's a tree. It's a tree that spawned from that Kanye tree. It's a lot of people on. I'm not saying I love every move that they make.
Listen,
I'm not saying
that
I'm not
Kanye
saying,
tree is a hell of a tree, man.
yes. And the part that I'm gonna push back on again and say is this: regardless of Eric and the cookout and all of that stuff, James got to where he got because of James. James forced a lot of conversations. James did not take no. James did not go, oh, this motherfucker ain't giving me something, so I'm just gonna quit. That's more due to him. He's a humble guy. He gives me way more credit than I probably deserve. It's him. And that's what we got to get to the point. Stop holding other motherfuckers in levels of perfection. We're humans, we make mistakes, but what are you doing for yourself? That's what's going to matter in the end. I don't give a fuck who's in power.
Absolutely.
I agree with you to an extent. And I'll say the extent is they got to, since we want to speak Virgil, what about all the Southside Chicago kids that was buying Pyrex, the New York kids that was buying Pyrex, to get him to that level till he could put on the people he put on. Everybody, like you said, James started somewhere. Everybody started from somewhere.
Yo.
So I guess hold on.
Let me chime in real quick.
Okay.
James don't owe nobody shit, and neither does Virgil. If you spend your money on Virgil shit,
yes,
your decision to do that.
I agree.
Yes,
I would push everybody, and I try to remember this every time we get on this chat, to look at that Breakfast Club interview with Dr. Claude Anderson.
Yes.
Where he breaks down what you can do as an individual, then as a group, to make a wave of realistic change, right? And it does come back to what Eric was saying. Yo, it's the money. We worrying about Virgil wouldn't be no way if nobody bought his shit.
Right.
Those were individual votes that they made. Yo, did you ever see pictures of Virgil back in the day? He was never the cool one. Never. He looked weird in those when Taz was popping, Taz Arnold.
Yeah, the Louis Vuitton pigs with the glasses on.
Yo, he was he looked like he got the hand-me-downs from the hand-me-downs of the hand-me-downs. And it's crazy to see where he's at right now, but he don't owe nobody nothing because everybody who bought Pyrex bought it on their own accord.
Well, and be real, Virgil had no money when they were doing the Pyrex thing. That was like a launch pad.
I mean, I don't think none of them did, but I think all the points are well pointed, yo. I appreciate everybody's words, and I'm about to let whoever said all the kind words. At the end of the day, I think this all comes down to one thing, and I think the strongest thing today is what Hutch said, yo. I'm with Hutch on that, yo. I'm off that. And to his point, I've never been on that, and he says I give him too much credit, but I don't, because you don't believe yourself until you find somebody that you respect that believes in you. And for me, that was Hutch, right? Like, he believed my crazy, and it motivated me to be crazy, right? And now I'm comfortable in my crazy because I know the people around me got my back and they support my crazy, right?
Hey, Pell.
Yo.
Remember that fila that we worked on?
Yeah.
Yo, do you remember that I had to actually leave work to do that jump? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the storytelling will be there. And James, without y'all believing in me, or Dre believing in me, or Ari or Hutch, we have to all come together and believe in each other on an early stage, very early stage.
Yo.
Can I say something?
Go ahead. Who said, can they say something?
This is Chantel.
Go ahead, Chantel.
Hey. I often get frustrated and overwhelmed with these conversations. I think that they're necessary before someone who is linear, or someone who has been having the conversations so often and with different people groups. I always think it's helpful to put out terms so that we can all be on the same page of what it is we're talking about. And so like when Dave started the conversation off, asking for a definition of justice and what that is for you so we can understand context. But when Sharifa, you said something that made me go, oh yes. There are certain people groups that need to be talked to. There's certain people groups that need to be in conversations, like whether you're talking about capitalism or justice or whatever. And I think the reason why this conversation can get overwhelming for me is because there's so many voices and I get off key and I go, what are we really talking about? There's a purpose and a place and a space for protesting and marching and whatnot. And then there's also a space for us to engage with wealthy, the white, whatever, those who are kind of part of that 1% and to challenge and to hold accountable. But I think what gets lost is we want to hold communities accountable. And I get passionate about this because this is frontline work for me. And I'm switching over to be with the Whitaker group, but I can't expect Aretha and these other family people and members of communities to stop buying Nike and to stop or to get off one bandwagon and jump on another so quickly. There's a poverty mindset. I have to ask for certain things as an African American trying to come up out of the trenches and the building a level playing field. I have to hold or ask that police in terms of justice be held accountable. I can't fix that on my own. And so I think when we have these conversations, and I'm not talking at anybody, my mind is everywhere. If one, we can define terms, then two, if we can put people in certain groups that are having conversations with certain groups of people so that we can see some of the progress that we are making. You following me? Like if we're wondering what's going on in the community, are we holding each other accountable? Then let's talk to some people in the communities and see that is happening and bring some of those leaders together and they have a conversation. And then what you all are doing when it comes to retail and brands and fashion and whatnot, what's some of the positive things that are happening that we can then start putting more pieces to, because otherwise we're gonna keep talking about the same thing and it's gonna get discouraging and overwhelming. There's some things that are happening. Shoot, this doggone conversation with the Jameses and the Pels and like people who are able to make a difference and change, the Sharifas, doggone it. Like what's happening that we can now attach to? But we can't have that conversation if we're talking to all the people groups all at once, and if we're only talking about what's wrong, what's right, and how can we attach to it? James, you get passionate about the community and where you came from. I'm with you on that, but I also get passionate about and laser focused on, I don't give a rat's ass what Nike and Reebok and whoever, what y'all are doing. I'm trying to figure out while Aretha's kids are in the house by themselves, the kids in the house by themselves with no supervision, and I gotta go bust a door down to try to get, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care, but the conversation is all needed, but it just has to happen with certain people groups so we can make some progress, and certain people don't need to be in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like us not even having our own language is messed up because we can't even come together with that. Like there has to be organizations. And no, I don't want to cancel Virgil and Kanye. The hell, why would I cancel Virgil and Kanye then rather than go snatching them up and having conversations with them? Or like Pell was saying, cut their legs off in terms of not buy all their stuff. Or it's just so many different conversations in one space. So I'm like, man, like maybe next time we can talk about too, what's good that's going on and how we are adding to it so we can keep building on it, because we keep getting stuck in this like cyclone here. And not we as in this group, but as a people group. And I'm watching people struggle out here in these streets, and they will still go by the Jordans tomorrow. They don't care because they're training. So my mind is on training, how to get you out of that mindset. Somebody help me do that. Then somebody can help James do what he's doing. Like, and then we bring that junk together. and we start rolling and start putting out the progress that's being made. Because the world will have you thinking that we out here, we ain't got nothing going on. No, we the minority everywhere. We're not a global minority as Blacks. Crazy. But the way it's spun, that's what it feels like. So you feel hopeless. That's not true.
And you 100% right. There is hope and there is opportunity because we all here and we have a platform and we have the ability, to Hutch's point. And what we saying is, what I felt like Hutch was saying was, we off of what happened over the last 400 years, and we have representations of what the next 400 should look like, and we gotta build each other up so we can be those representations, and we can create more Dre's, more Chantels, more Sharifas, more Franks, more Erics, more, right? So with that, once again, I appreciate the energy, all the energy, right? Because we get to have these amazing conversations. And I feel like their energy and fuel to continue to just build each other up. And for me, like I said, it keeps me rooted, grounded, and connected. And I'm gonna be mindful of everybody's time and thank each of you for coming out tonight.
Can I ask a quick question? I know you're trying to wrap this up, but I have one question I had to ask real quickly.
Go for it.
Because basically, I was hearing a lot about the past 400 years versus what we're going to do for the next 400 years. We're tired of, asking people to, be perfect with us. And, this is coming from someone who's not not an asker of anything, right? Like I literally twice now have gone to VCs and investor as a 20-year-old, right? Said, this is what I need. I can code it. I need, $5,000. Maybe I need a couple of, other people's teams. They laugh in my face. They kind of just say, fuck off, you can't do this. So then I go home, teach myself how to build a social network myself and do it, right? So I'm all about, not asking for help with anybody, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to kind of where people like me are in terms of, doing that kind of stuff, we still need opportunity. And we're not asking for perfection from some of these top people. We're asking for the same kind of fairness that they're, treating other people. And that doesn't require perfection to give me the same opportunities as they're giving white people. Where white people, it's just like, I got this idea for a stupid ass dog walking app. Oh, they get 10K. I come up here doing this thing. I'm trying to make an app for Black people, by Black people for this kind of cultural issue. And then they go, no. And it's not just white people even on that front.
One question. And that's the last thing you pitched?
What? The for Black people.
You said the last app you pitched, you asked for 10K?
No, last app I pitched, I just did it myself because all of them said no already. It was a sneaker app, which everybody can download right now because I made it myself anyway. But, when it comes to kind of these opportunities, we're not asking for perfection. And there seemed to be kind of a dialogue in there with that. And then it kind of comes to, if they're not going to give it to us, we just take it, which is, wonderful. And it's an easy thing to say, but at the same time, like I couldn't just take take the unmute button off myself. I still had to raise my hand and wait for the unmute button to kind of be given to me.
Yo, David, the one thing I can say to you is this. If we don't create that platform, by the time my shit's over, I failed you, bro. You can hold me.
I mean, I think also too, I think there's a kind of a mixture of conversations there. I think to what Hutch was speaking on in terms of like not asking for perfections of people, not asking for people to be perfect, was just talking about kind of in the vein of cancel culture and how we look at certain folks to take on certain roles based off of the platforms that they have, right? And that's when Pale kind of chimed in and was like, nobody who is successful owes anybody anything, but it's dope if you do actually reach your hand out, which is how a lot of these people are connected that are on this call. I think as someone who considers myself to be, in a similar position, you know what I'm saying, probably from like an age perspective and probably just from an experience perspective too, David, like, I think part of it is just being able to continue, right? Like you getting 4 no's or 5 no's and then going to build it yourself shows you that you got the opportunity to really build it yourself. You know what I'm saying? Which then empowers you.
More than 4 no's, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but
400 no's.
Yeah, it was a lot of no's.
Well, I mean, either way. I mean, I'm not, regardless of the number, I'm saying it empowers you to do the next. It empowers you to do the next thing, right? And it empowers you to look at your peer group and figure out like, how can we create the next step without asking? But you don't get that without getting to know. Like a lot of it is too, and what I'm learning just in the season that I'm in terms of like just entering into the companies that I own it, and some of those things starting to hit scale, is that a lot of it a lot of just like that experience of hearing no caused you to go get the information and knowledge to do it yourself. It's the same thing when it comes to growing and scaling and getting certain levels of information and knowing how certain things work from an experience perspective. When I was 24 and 25 and I was working at Coca-Cola and they would have me in supply chain and they wanted me to sit in that department for 5 years just to learn the entire business, I was like, no, bro, like figure out a way to give me the information faster. But you can't really make change if you don't have context to some of what Chantel was talking about. So it's about being able to take where you are, look at the peer group that you have around you, put your head down, keep working, figure out what skills you can take care of yourself so that you're building and creating the next opportunity for yourself. So it's not even about you, to your point, not even asking about the thing. You built it yourself, which gives you more equity in the project. If you would have took the bread from the investors, now you got to give up equity. Now later down the line, if that blows up, now you have people that you got to pay back. You're in a better position as a result of hearing no. And I think a lot of times we should reframe the no's and really look at the no's as like a blessing, because now you're not in bed with whoever, told you no, who probably didn't have your best interest in heart anyway.
Yeah, Finch just said that. Turn that no into a slow yes. And once again, I'm gonna be thankful of everybody's time. And I know because everybody got it, but yo, listen, I appreciate all of you and everything you bring to the conversation. Once again, thank you everybody for investing your time. This wraps our next episode. This wraps our episode of Free Game.
Last one of the year.
We said that the last one too, though, right? So
yeah, true.
I like our new cadence because the conversations are getting tensions, but we're getting to some good places. So I appreciate y'all for investing y'all time. I'm ready for war coming into the New Year's. Thank you, each of you, and we'll see you next.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you got any ideas, for programming, we are, the Be Social platform is open, just like when the spaces were open pre-COVID. So I do want to encourage everybody who's on the call, if you want to get tactile, you want to have a group conversation, the Be Social platform is open for us to be able to host a digital call, for you to be able to host your own digital event, push that out across our platform. So follow us on Be Social,
Hand Wash
please.
Cold, Prosper also.
Yep.
Across all community banners are open for this. If you're in the area where any of our banners are at or not, you need a platform, we're your platform. We're here to help you push. Please, we have to hold us accountable to get better.
Yep. So go ahead, hit us up on social media. We'll make sure that you get connected with the community team that can help you facilitate your event. Make sure you got access to Zoom, blah, 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 blah. But I just wanted to make sure I threw that out there as everybody's planning for 21. Just know that this platform is open to any and everybody on this call to host their own discussion or their own event, or anything that you're looking to do that's going to impact the people around you and impact the circles that are around you.
We are here to build you up. So if you want your moment, you don't got to take it. Hit us. We'll help you get it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Everybody have a good night.
Good night.